I'd like to call to order the Master Plan Implementation Committee. Is anyone recording the meeting? LakeCAM is recording the meeting. All right. So I'd like to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay. So item 2, review and possible vote to approve the meeting minutes for February 7th. Has everyone had the opportunity to read the minutes?
Yeah. I would move to approve.
Second.
All in favor, aye? Aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Discuss requesting the select board update the charge of the committee, which was last amended on July 31st of 2017.
If I may,
Yes.
I thought we had updated it after, before I retired, but in checking my file, and I checked with Tracy, this was the latest one that she had. And I'm pretty sure we updated it at the time because it used to have a Board of Selectmen member on there instead of the town administrator. So this is the latest charge.
Okay. If everyone could read it and solicit comment and discussion.
I made a note that were we supposed to meet originally monthly?
Yes.
Correct.
When have we ever met monthly?
Well, we did for a while when
Did
we
we really?
first,
We were
when we
updating it.
reconvened. Early on, we used to, and then there was a hiatus. And then when we started again, we were pretty consistent every month, maybe every other month,
Yeah, okay.
depending on what was going on, but we're charged to meet monthly.
Once the plan passed, that
Yeah,
went by the
I would
way.
like that the monthly, to me, monthly to update the master plan.
Correct,
Master plan is updated, therefore there's no need to meet monthly.
correct. And also now it reads the master plan from 2005, so.
Right, we
obviously
gotta
have
update that to
We have to update that to the
2020.
most recent version. So if I may, if I read it for the people at home. So the town of Lakeville, Massachusetts shall establish a master plan implementation committee to oversee and update the town's master plan published in 2005. The duties and responsibilities of the master plan implementation committee shall be as follows: to meet monthly to update Lakeville's 2005 master plan, to research possible funding sources and make application for grants to update various sections of the 2005 master plan, to work with key board members, to work with key boards to assist the committee in updating various sections of the 2005 master plan and foster public participation in the planning process. The committee shall consist of 7 members to be appointed by the Board of Selectmen for 1-year terms. The committee will consist of a member of the planning board, the town administrator, a member of the open space committee, and a member of the conservation commission, and 3 members at large. End.
If I may just point out too, on the member of the open space committee, that committee had requested that they, because Patrick served on it for so many years, that he be the representative for open space. So that's why Patrick's on this. He's representing open space.
Okay. So do you want to take this from top and work our way down, making edits? So do we still want to say published in 2005? Do we want to amend that to read the most recent version?
Should be the most recent.
Okay.
Yeah.
Updated as of,
Or published in, because it was
Some-
published, yeah, because that,
Brand new plan, so.
right,
2020,
2020.
yeah. All right.
So we'll strike 2005, change to 2020. Leave the verbiage the same, to oversee and update the town's master plan, published in 2020.
Yeah, I think that
to meet monthly to update Lakeville's strike 2005, 2020,
Or as needed?
or as needed. So this is where we need some discussion about the role of the committee. Obviously, by name, we're the Master Plan Implementation Committee. You would think that we would implement the master plan. In reality, Patrick had said earlier that it's more of an advisory role now that the master plan is complete. And then we more likely than not go back to the updating when the next 5 years comes, so in 2025, which is of course 2 years from now. So what are the thoughts about, as an advisory, to change the charge to include that verbiage or add it? How would we do that? What's your opinions?
I mean, to me right now, we're in a phase of, we have a master plan. We're looking, hopefully, I guess, to advise committees and boards to make sure that we are kind of going along with what the plan is. So to me, as of right now, really the only charge is number 3, the third bulleted point, that needs to be changed because we do have the plan, but we certainly don't need to be monthly right now to update the plan. We have a plan. Again, define funding sources to update the plan. The plan's been funded. And I think for this time period, we're looking at the third bullet point, which is the crux of where do we go. But I also see those other two probably coming back within, how many years do you plan on? The plan's supposed to take us to 2030, so
Correct.
come 2028 or so.
I would think that we should be focused on pursuing the different boards and saying, like you said, where are we and what are you doing and when do you plan to have this particular goal accomplished? I think we've got the master plan in line. Where are you guys? I mean, first of all, are you looking at the master plan and what are you working towards the accomplishment of your specific requirements? I think basically it's chasing after people.
Is that not part of the role of the town planner to facilitate?
You mean the planning board or the?
I'm talking between the committee and the committees, this committee, and the different boards that have responsibility to the master plan.
I agree, and I think I can only speak for the planning board. I mean, that's what Mark does. We continually look at that, but I think now that we've got the master plan in line, would it not be prudent to say, okay, let's develop some kind of a watchdog, phase, or go after these, or just go to the committees and say, or have how about we had each board member come in one night and say, tell us where you are.
Well, we've done that in the past. We need to definitely get back to it again, for sure. What I've mentioned in the past, what I'd like to mention again, is it feasible for the boards that have responsibility toward the master plan to have the master plan as a standing item, agenda item?
I can only
like the
speak for
select board or the planning board or whichever group.
The planning board, I can only speak to them. They do. Mark does.
Okay, so we need to get people in front of this committee, or we need to go to them and sit there and listen to what's relevant to the master plan.
I mean, wouldn't it be better to invite them to come?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think Mark, I can only speak for Mark. I can't speak for the rest of it. They'd be more than glad to come and sit right at that table and tell you exactly where they are.
What are the thoughts of the committee? I mean, Ari, you have any opinion on that, or Mr. Chamberlain?
I would think that some sort of memo or brief letter to the various boards saying essentially, hey, keep us in mind when you decide stuff. I'm not sure of the wording of that, but just to let them know that whenever they're making decisions, and most of our boards are decision-making boards, regulatory boards of some sort, are they kind of in togetherness with the thoughts that we have already published here, that we've been updating over the years? I leave the wording to someone else.
So if we keep it like a bi-monthly
And make them accountable to come and,
You can't tell the.
You can't make
you
You can't make them accountable, unfortunately, but I think to work collaboratively with this committee, being that they are responsible for their portion of this.
Can I make an observation?
Absolutely.
So, just think from a 30,000 foot level, in town in general, they're part of, in my perception, part of the role of the MPIC is to act as an evangelist for the master plan. To be out there, it mentions public participation in the planning process, but I think we're also talking about heightening awareness among the boards and other participants in the community as to what the vision of the master plan is and what it's trying to do. I don't think there's a lot of fealty in government or in the community to this master plan. There isn't a whole, the master plan has certain visions for development areas, for protection areas, for economic development and so on. And right now, the debate that's going on in town is happening almost irrespective of the master plan. And if we want to be serious about implementation of the master plan, then perhaps this committee ought to be focusing on finding ways to identify and highlight master plan issues, and perhaps when issues come along that are either consistent with the master plan or inconsistent with the master plan, identify those as such. Give you some examples. We have, this is the map of priority areas. We get 40 Bs and 60 in chapter lands comments all the time. Probably they're not anywhere in the protection areas. But every time one comes up, we hear a fairly loud chorus about got to protect that land. And the master plan that's not the philosophy of the master plan. The philosophy of the master plan is that certain areas are worth protecting, and other areres, it acknowledges in other areas you have to allow economic development to happen so that we can have growth and can support, government and finances and allow the town to progress. So I just feel like that somewhere in the conversation, the objectives and values of the master plan kind of been lost in the fire and brimstone that's out there.
I agree.
well, Rocky Woods is in priority protection.
That one is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Barstow
that's-
Street isn't.
Pardon?
Barstow Street isn't.
No,
Mr. Chamberlain, you had your hand.
Harry would probably be best able to answer this. In terms of legality, where does a master plan fit? Or is it even a legal document?
It's a policy
But
document.
It's a
according
policy
to,
document, but we're required by law to have one.
the planning board is
Massachusetts.
required to do
Required to have
the
one.
master
Yeah.
plan.
Okay.
But
We
the
didn't
plan-
have much luck with that, so the
There's
selectmen.
nothing preventing a planning board from, rezoning an area, or something that, the master plan is not a legal straitjacket on the ability of the town to do something or the other. It's a policy document.
Subject to change.
Sure,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes.
absolutely.
There's definitely things in here that aren't priorities at all anymore.
Yeah.
And that's reflected in the almost 20 years that from 2005 on the original document, of course, in 2020, and even 3 years ago, that the priorities have changed. So, we talk about it being a living, living document, something that's not static and put on a shelf. And I kind of feel like that's somewhat where you're right. And you better articulated it, of course, but
Yes, yes,
no, it's okay.
yeah, you're
I
right.
can handle it.
I know that.
It's all
I
good.
think you actually said it better than I did.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Just to give you a sense of what goes on with the planning boards, we get inundated, but we get regular input from builders and homeowners, I want to expand. Mohammed wanted to go down to County Road, put in that big place, then they had to go an archaeological survey, and Mohammed withdrew his permit. And what he's doing here on LeBaron, and just a good example of what's happened here is that real estate place up at the corner of 79-18. That came up very well. And so we get a lot of that, and so we get so immersed in these different things that I think we got to make sure we go back in that. And Mark's pretty good about going back and looking at this, but obviously, and I've always been to some of our meetings, we get away from that by virtue of what we're required to do by Sikorsky up on 79 and all these things. That's, and you don't get back to the core document of where we are here. I can't speak for the other groups, but I'm sure they have similar issues.
So then how do we do that? That's it's kind of what we were talking about earlier, is how do we do that?
Have them come in, have Mark come in, have, you know, the wetlands group or whoever they are, or all these different ones come in and say, you know, if you look at this document lately, can you give me some sense of where you are? You know, I'm sure you can tactfully word it.
Tact and diplomacy. I have a definition which will remain my inner monologue. I'm not going to lose that. So,
I think some of it too is when things do come up. For instance, you've got the select boards.
which actually, thank you for saying that we're going to change
coming
the
up later,
verbiage,
but I think that it's important for us as a committee to have the committee opinion in time for whatever's coming up at the planning board or open space or whatever. You know, when some of these parcels come out from like chapter 60, I know with one of them, I had emailed Ari and said there was a list of priorities from open space. These were the lands that continuously kept coming up saying you need to protect. I know, as Ari says, and they come out of chapter 60 and suddenly they're not there anymore.
Right.
You
Or
mean
they're
61,
sold.
right?
61, yeah, sorry. And then, you know, I know for a while it seemed, at least in open space, in my eyes, it was, okay, here's the list of priority lands, come up with a list, this parcel's coming off the chapter 61 or whatever, and then you let it go, and then, okay, you get the same edict the next year, come up with a priority list. And I just remember at one point responding, it's the same as last year, minus the one you just got rid of. So, but I think it's important for us as a committee to at least express our thoughts and opinions as to things that are coming up and how they relate to the master plan.
I mean, I'm not here to champion Mark on the planning board, but Mark keeps us well focused on the open spaces, protection of the open spaces. But I'll tell you, you know, on any given meeting we'll have 5 or 6 different appeals. On the golf course over here is now 7th appearance. Sikorsky on his now 8th or 10th appearance, and it goes on and on and on. So you have all these open hearings, and before you know it, it's 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock, we're done. And there's not much, you know, then there's not much conversation about this. About the open plan or the open spaces, there's a lot. You know, Michelle and some of these other folks have been on the committee a long time, are big champions of that.
One of the questions asked me when forgive me if I misstate it, but if my memory serves, I had asked about protection in perpetuity on properties, whether it's 61 or others. Has there been any thought to that? These, you know, because you said it can come off, right? It can come off 61, but is there any legal, moving forward, of course, not currently, but any legal thing that can be done to put these properties, if they're protected in perpetuity? Or is that not?
Pretty much just like Betty's Neck.
I'm not saying that we have, but I'm just saying, because
restriction.
I'm a staunch advocate of private home ownership.
Yeah.
I don't want people telling me what to do, and I mean, that's me. So it's gotta be done in a way like, you know, if it's not like Betty's Neck as an example, I think that's a great example. Are there properties like that could be considered for protection in perpetuity?
How about that section of County Road down there that Muhammad wanted to develop, that now is supposedly sacred area for the Indians? Does that become protected?
I don't know. I mean,
you know, you say wanted to develop it. He has not withdrawn it.
Oh, I thought he had.
He submitted a site readiness request to MHCD, and MHCD has not ruled yet. At that point, if he decides to develop it, he can come forward to the ZBA with a development proposal.
How many? So I got a couple of questions regarding sacred land. I mean, obviously before it was all sacred, you know. But are there parts of town now that are considered sacred that can be still protected instead of having a developer come in, although we may know what it is, like those of us who grew up here that would know, oh yeah, well, you know, that's protected Rocky Woods, right? As an example, or it's not protected, but I mean, it's sacred. You know, you grow up with these stories and you hear and you hear everything, but it only becomes a problem when the developer comes in and says, well, we want to develop this, and all of a sudden it's, well, these are, you know, this is a protected area. Why can we not identify those areas that might be sacred to the indigenous, you know, to the indigenous people in advance versus waiting, being proactive versus reactive?
It's because most people are reactive to things, that's why.
But I think that's
Right,
what
but
we
it's
did with-
crisis management, right? And if we know these things going in with the priorities, the protection, you know what I mean?
That's what I think we did with the priority protection, is saying these are the properties that.
Right, that are, but how do we protect them?
That's not what happened in County Road.
We can say it's priority, which is great.
Right, but there's no legal,
Right, there
Yeah.
lies a problem, because if we're gonna say in a nice way, hey, this is priority when the rubber meets the road.
A lot of them are privately owned too.
Right.
So it's just a matter of, okay, if they become available,
Right, that's,
if there's something, then okay, how do you go about doing it? That's where your
are all the,
CPC
Yeah, the
comes in and all
CPA.
that, CPA.
are all the 61A properties in the open space plan, hopefully that we would, like the Barstow Street property, was that one that the open space, did they
I
just?
can't, you know, it's been a while since
I
I've
haven't
seen
read
the
it in a
list.
while.
There were about, I mean, Ari's got the map there. I know
It's
that we had a listing and there were at least a dozen properties that were considered, you know, if it comes up, these are really gonna vastly change the character
Right.
of Lakeville, that they should be protected in some way.
So it wasn't necessarily every 61
No,
property?
no, I
Okay.
think when,
I didn't think so.
I feel like Linda, when she was on the committee, did come up with a fairly extensive list, but it was kind of hard to get a listing because you were essentially trying to go through all the assessor's records
Yeah,
at
right.
the time. And
What exactly would be the point of designating every 61 property as a preservation target? Does that mean the town would be buying every property that comes out?
Right,
I mean,
and
that's
I
not-
don't
Yeah.
think we
not
did
possible.
that.
no, we
it's-
didn't.
no.
I know when
The most important ones.
we were
Yeah.
kind of like the biggest one, like the golf courses.
The golf, yeah.
Property along the Damascus for
Mm-hmm.
protection of the watershed.
Because I didn't think the Barstow Street was in, I could be wrong. Do you know if it was
The
our?
golf course is actually listed as a combined PDA, PPA, which I never entirely understood. It says that it's, you know, a priority development area and a priority protection area. How can you view both at the same time? I've never understood that, but that's how it's categorized on the map.
Do you have the plan? Well, other than the map, didn't we have a document that talked about each?
Yes, and I've seen it. It listed under priority protection areas and priority development areas. So it
What
listed
did
both
we
ways.
say about the
Just list it.
development?
it's like 1A, 1B, or?
Yeah. And it's
Yeah.
you know, it's like a multiverse approach.
Well, there's three parts to 60. There's 60, which is straight agriculture, 61A, which is forestry, and 61B, which is
Recreation.
recreational open land.
Right.
And
If I recall too, there were two different committees trying to come together. I mean, you had the open space looking at the lands, and then there was an economic committee as well too, that also had their list of places.
There's a desire to resuscitate that committee. The question is what the objectives of the committee would be. Because we're trying to, you know, you can't really have an economic development committee without having an economic development strategy, and that's unclear what that is at this point, so.
are the owners of chapter lands notified when one of our groups says it's priority land? I mean, do they know that?
That is a great question. Ari?
I also don't know.
I think years ago, the Open Space Committee did reach out.
I mean, the last time this was done
Owners.
was well before my time, Joe, so I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah.
There was a
That's
period
it.
where we were essentially told to go to all the properties and
See,
I know that I have,
see them.
I have to do
Yeah.
the paperwork myself
The last-
every year.
Yeah, I mean, the community priority area map in the master plan was dated April 2018. So,
That's a
we
great
heard
point,
from-
though, I mean, because if if bureaucrats, you know, are identifying the property and the property owner is oblivious to it.
Yes,
It's kind of a
I
problem.
my point
You know, I
exactly.
think
Yeah,
20
that's-
years ago, the Open Space Committee did go to all of to see if they would be interested later on, working with the town.
To the homeowners, the
Yes.
property owners, excuse me.
I have to say, I don't recall that, and I've been to chapter 61 for
They never
50
contacted
years,
you?
not that I can remember.
Okay,
I know in my time, that wasn't, I
No.
mean, the decision was somebody like you, if you wanted to bring your property out, you
Yeah.
were notifying the town anyways.
Yeah.
Right, correct.
now this is back when Linda was on it,
Yeah.
that,
I think it's a wonderful idea that, you know, to notify them, but if they turn around, you know, and they might be like, hey, that's nice, but no.
Your previous question of how to keep something protected in forever is basically you have to get some conservation group to pony up the money and acquire the property and keep it open.
Right. We talked about that with the CPA and
Yep.
a lot of discussion about CPA and how it's an opportunity, but the reality is the value of property exceeds the funding.
Yeah.
So how can you reconcile that? Like, it's a great, if someone's got deep pockets and conservation and they can purchase it and preserve it in perpetuity,
I
great.
think, you know, County Road, I mean, Harry can maybe speak better to it than I can, but when Rami came and made the presentation for County Road to us, in attendance was a representative from the Native American Indian tribe. And she got up and made her presentation that a certain segment of that property was sacred and they would hope that they would be protected. And so, you know,
Well, hope's not a plan.
so, well anyways,
You know, I'm being kind of sarcastic, but hope's not a plan. That's what I was asking about the legality, right? Is we have these very big ideas and that require further discussion, of course, but how do we tie it into the master plan if, again, we're not a policy setting committee, but we can keep it in front of people and keep them on their toes, so to speak, to, you know, make sure, like you said, with Mark and the committee, your committee, how do we do that? Because it feels right now that we sit here in 2023, the plan was updated in 2020, we've had some shift in priorities and shift in, you know, again, the properties, lack of communication, and I'll bear responsibility for that as the chair of this committee, to not get people in front of us to talk and give us the updates. That's my responsibility. So that I accept. Moving forward, you know, we have to have a multi-pronged approach, because whatever we're doing right now, if we can't, we have no authority, you know, over committees, and you want to get this implemented, how do you do it?
well, I hope that we're all working in the same direction for the same goals.
I just think everyone's working in their silos, and the flow of communication is, it's vertical, not horizontal. It's vertical in the silo and not so much horizontal to this committee. And like I said, just a few moments ago, I bear that responsibility, so.
I think probably a lot of these committees are being impacted by Serpent, as we are, I know we are, as it relates to now to the BTA.
Right.
well, if I may, Rodney.
No, it's-
For instance, like the Historical Commission, they're looking, their priorities have been to designate a historical district. They had a couple, and it would, I think, be helpful for them to come before the committee on TV and let everybody know, this is where we are. The Historic Preservation Plan too. We had funding for that many years ago, and it is a lot of work, and I'm curious, you know, how are they doing on? I don't know how the committee feels, but just having different, like Agricultural Commission has, I don't know how active they are anymore, Ari. Are they very active? No, after we passed the farming community.
Yeah, I haven't heard from them.
Yeah,
They keep saying the
we couldn't even get the signs up.
I was just gonna ask that. Because someone asked me the other day, are we not a right to farm community? I
are.
said, yes. They said, well, where's the followed by, well, where's the sign?
Where's the guy on the tractor,
The
right?
guy in the
Yeah.
tractor that says Lakeville, right to farm community. So what is the status and who do we talk to about those? Is it state funded? Is it town funded? Those?
I don't know.
That's gotta be town funded. Oh, you need the signs?
Yes.
Oh, I have no idea, no
And then
idea.
and then you gotta install the signs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How many do we need? Where are they gonna be installed?
So that
Town lines.
that is on my
Town
list, I noticed
I'm
that.
sorry, everyone's talking.
I
Pardon me?
said town lines. When you
Town
enter
lines,
the town.
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Spells.
Well, that's a great question. Does the town install
Town.
those or?
Highway department.
So I'm not sure the answer to that. I was asked recently about, someone was at Westport has just put their sign that they just adopted. So it's on my list to follow up, find out how to do that.
If you could follow up on the next committee meeting, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
'Cause who knows that we're, but you voted. So, all right.
If we can go back to the second to research possible funding sources and make application for grants. This committee was very active. We got the funding. The Serpent has three pots of money that we go for. We got the funding for the priority, the PPAs and the PDAs. We held all the meetings with the public. We were much more active before. We got the funding for the housing production plan. We got the funding from Serpent to update the housing production plan. And then when it came time to update, so I don't know if we want to leave that in there, or if,
Might as well leave it in there. It'll be in our purview.
because Ari
We have
is a
to-
member
Right,
of the
correct. I think that's a
committee,
great
so
idea.
leave that on there.
They'll think we're doing it.
Anyone here really good at writing grants?
That's a real skill.
We have resources in town for that, and we have a couple of,
Right.
number of grants that we move forward on that all kind of touch on some of the strategies of master plan implementation. And we have a number of grants we're working with Serpent on as well.
Their application's very simple
Yeah, theirs is easy.
to get the funding.
Yeah, so the one stop for growth is a 40-page application. Those are the big parts. We just did a big
Yeah.
one for Betty's Neck.
That was-
To restore the peach barn. It's about $500,000 project.
Yeah.
Cool.
We'll see if we get it.
I wonder how much the peach barn cost to put up originally.
Yeah.
About $1.50.
Just
Yeah.
$2 tops.
Timbers are, we put in for a grant through the MHC for the Old Town Hall.
Yes.
From there. So, things like,
Yeah.
so we're pretty active in that respect.
Awesome. So let's go down to the final
Yeah.
part of it. So I would make a recommendation also to change the board of selectmen to select board.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even catch that.
And I noticed the last couple of meetings of the select board, the select board members were saying selectmen.
It's an old habit to break. It's
Yeah,
a
yeah,
100
yeah.
years old tradition and it's our form of government that we've had forever and a day and you can't change it overnight. Just well enough along. All right. Committee shall consist of 7 members. Is there any part of this other than the changing the board of selectmen to select board for 1-year terms that needs to change?
I don't think so, but
Okay. So those are done. What is the process to amend the charge?
Submit a letter to the select board and we can put on the agenda. We can amend the charge.
So a letter to them?
do we want to get samples from other communities?
I think that's a great idea too.
What do you think, Ari?
Sure.
I can do that.
I was just answering the direct question of how you amend it. So
Yeah.
that's fine.
So it's a letter to the
It
select
would be
board?
unless you want, but if you want to wait to get some other, look at some of the community's charges, then I would hold off. I wouldn't go to the well twice, I would just.
No, that's, you do your research and,
Yeah.
and then, make the amendment and then, forward it. So it's a simple letter with the change.
With the changes noted, that's all,
Yeah.
very simple.
Okay,
We can give it to Ari to put on the,
No problem.
thank you for doing that.
Happy to.
All right.
That's what they pay me
so
for.
I'll call Serpent and see if they have other samples.
And if not, then we can call either the various committees, or we could call the towns of those committees, correct?
Yeah.
And do we want to, knowing that we're one of 351 cities and towns, do we want to go with similar size or
Yes.
similar?
I don't know if everybody has an MPIC. I think that's I think some towns do, some don't, so.
I would stick with the 27 certified communities. But I won't go check
They
with all
definitely don't,
27.
they definitely don't all have an MPIC.
No,
Okay.
I said maybe 10 or 12 of them do. That'd be
Well, I
my
want to
guess.
make it value added too, you know, our time is valuable, right?
Yeah.
It's precious, and we do this on a volunteer basis, as all committees do, you know, in the town. So I just want to make sure that, knowing that our time is valuable, that it's well spent, it's productive, right? We're doing actionable things. That's, go ahead.
I'd say a third of the plan has already been completed. When you go through the items, we have completed a lot.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead, please.
Does this committee know what towns are comparable in size to us right now?
Not,
Comparable?
If we don't,
Yes, I do.
yeah, Rita does, Rodney doesn't, but Rita.
if it's not, we can get it for you.
Which are
Thank you.
rural communities,
And that's a flexible number,
yeah.
Right,
because the towns are getting larger.
true. Well, I know that we're getting larger. We talked about it before, about managed growth, and when people come in and they build these new buildings, that we would like for them to look a certain way. And we talked about it ad nauseum about the examples of, Walgreens and, the New England style, and, kind of having some of that. So we know that that's changed.
I think that
Yeah.
Route 18 and 79 is an example of what we've been able to.
Yeah, I mean, that looks like a New England, a New England structure, if you
Yeah.
were. So recognizing until real change is made with real rules in place, it can be managed to the best of our ability. It sounds like only with maybe the design at this point, because if anything's for sale and someone's got the money and they want to procure, they go through the process and they can procure the property and do what they need to do the right legal way. Seeing Lakeville grow is a challenge. It's not the Lakeville that we all grew up in, but those that grew up here, for sure.
I mean, I would say that the planning board though has been able to
Yep.
definitely controls the signage
Yep.
and the exterior
I
design.
want to go back to something that you mentioned about Betty's Neck. Go back in time with me. Where were you when my family decided to sell Betty's Neck? Were you somewhere in,
I was at the town administrator.
you were the town
It's like
administrator?
one
at
of the
time.
first, yeah.
Okay. Can you remember, we had a guy from Philadelphia come in to figure out how many houses he could put in Betty's Neck.
Oh, 1,000.
I think it was more than that. I think it was like, I think we could make a little town of its own. Well over 1,000 houses by right,
Yeah.
Wow.
which is one of the reasons why the Assawamsett Ponds complex, all the towns got together and said, whoa. And I have to consider ourselves lucky that we're not a city of 60,000.
Right.
If it weren't for, New Bedford and Taunton sucking up all that land.
That was the largest state grant Massachusetts had ever done.
Had ever done. That was
For
what-
Betty's Neck?
Oh, no, prior to
The
that.
purchase price was 9 million. The
Yeah.
state did 6 million. The town did 1 million. The city of Taunton did 600,000,
Something.
and New Bedford did something, but
So it was a collaborative effort
Yes.
of many different people, that multi-pronged approach.
And at the top of the signatures list, the top person signing was my mom.
That is
And
awesome.
she had great handwriting, great handwriting.
That's awesome.
Secretary Duran, do you remember the?
Yes.
Well, thank you
We
for.
did it on the beach,
Yep.
right down
Yep.
at Betty's
Thank you
Neck.
for telling me that, because I didn't know the story. I just knew
Oh,
that
yeah.
it was, how it is now, and I didn't know the story. So thank you for sharing that. That's pretty awesome.
There's a lot of history to that piece of land.
I'm sure there's a lot of
In fact,
history.
you mentioned sacred areas. There's some sacred areas on Betty's Neck.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
And, Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of properties like that, so how would, they be identified, and how can they be either procured or they can be protected? You know, procured then protected in perpetuity. I think that's an awesome story, I love that, you know?
And that is in perpetuity.
That is in
Yeah.
perpetuity.
So, okay, well, thank you so much.
Can I just ask, Jack, is the planning board been doing anything on the open space residential design bylaw? We were gonna bring it,
That's on the list for, probably Mark, I think Mark will be working on it after July 4th, but
Okay.
the plan is to get that, try to get it to the, town meeting for the fall.
Right.
Okay. All right, so are we comfortable with, to close the loop on the charge with the changes that we've made, changing 2005 to 2020, changing the Board of Selectmen to the Select Board, and then going out to the communities
yeah,
to see their charges?
so we'll put it on the next agenda.
Yes, please.
The current plan's good to 2030.
Yes,
Yes.
Correct.
so before that, we'll have to start having
Meetings.
all those public
Meetings,
meetings
right,
again.
right,
Yep.
right. I thought, that's not that far away.
Yeah, that is a true
Comes up on
story.
you fast.
Okay, so should we move forward to the next agenda item? Which is correspondence, the Select Board's Chapter 61 right of first refusal policy and procedures.
And I already sent that to all of us. But I thought so that we'd all have a printed copy of it.
Yeah, thank you.
And we have to
This
think,
is nice, because it is pretty much the state law
Right.
of the, but to have it in a policy is very nice.
It is state law, although the notification choices are not state law.
Right.
So the.
That's
the-
why-
The select board,
Said
the
on
only
the-
thing that state law is that the select board gets to decide whether to,
Right.
to exercise right of first refusal or not.
But
Everything
the
else is
appraisal
internal.
part of it and all of that is.
Appraisal, right, yeah. But the internal policy and notification process is all really discretion of the
Right.
locality. That being said, this board felt very important, and I think the minds are in the right place, that we try to have a process that's inclusive in terms of notification. Doesn't mean they have to do what any one particular board member, committee member wants or whatever, just to make sure that the information is shared, and that there's a structure for how it's being shared.
Yeah, you're protecting the process.
And
Individual
to
structure,
hand
right.
this to the
Right,
homeowner,
right.
the property owner, I
Correct.
should
And you
say.
notice in the back, there's a checklist
Yeah,
Yeah.
for both, yeah, which will, every time one comes up, we'll have the checklist.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
which is
And at first
which is why the document from you, which clarifies chapter 61, is longer than chapter 61.
Hashtag truth. Okay. Is there any discussion or questions about the policy and procedures?
No, I agree with Rita, I was just glad to see it.
yeah.
It does, it makes
Yeah.
things more detailed. But like I said, a lot of the stuff is just left to the towns to administer it.
Yeah.
There's the law, but how you administer it, you know?
And you always have to go back and look it up.
Yeah,
And then at first I thought you had duplicated the checklist, but one's a conversion.
Conversion,
And
one's
one
sale.
is the sale.
All right, the two,
And
they're
I'm
a
thinking,
little bit different.
Yeah.
yeah, so because I sat and read the whole thing and I'm saying, oh, it's not a duplicate reading. It's,
Yeah.
is this something that, to circle back what we were talking about earlier about chapter 61 lands and then the priority, in notifying the property owners, is this something that we would consider if it comes to fruition, when we contact them to provide this document?
Well, as I said, I'm not sure that I would want to write it, but I think there ought to be some notification to all chapter land people, because we have the three categories that, we're aware, obviously they are aware, but, we're aware and we consider the land, these are special places in the town and worthy of some degree or level of protection. And just wanted to make you sure aware of that, because I'm sure they are aware of that.
For situational awareness.
Yes,
They're probably aware every time they get their tax bill. So.
yes.
Oh, I'm very
Oh, yeah.
sure they, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think, and you're right, there's a way to use tact and diplomacy when communicating that type of information, you know, both generally to the public, but also targeted to the property owner. It's just information, just thought you should know. And if there is any questions or concerns about the priority list, or, you know, then feel free to, you know, comment, maybe come to the committee and let's have some dialogue and let them know.
Here's a question, for Ari. Can we find online a list of all the chapter, without having to
The
search?
assessor's database has all the chapter 61 properties. I'm just not sure whether you can search for chapter 61 on the assessor's database, but but you can look up property and find out if it's chapter 61. So I imagine I guess it would not be difficult to get a report from the assessors listing all the chapter 61 property.
Okay.
Yeah. If you can't do it by looking it up on the online, then they could provide the list.
So you were flashing a map, and what was showing on that map?
That was the PDA, PPA.
Okay,
map.
okay.
Yeah.
Right. So with regards to the letter, once it's composed and then it can get printed and delivered, does the town have the resources to get that into the hands of the property owners? Or could it be I know you're smiling, but could it be not that we want to put more stuff on our tax bills in that envelope, but.
I'm not sure what the denominator is. That's what I'm trying to, I'm not sure how many property owners we're talking about. I'm just not certain.
Well, how much does it cost to mail? Is it 55 or 60 cents?
Yeah.
I think
To mail what?
It's 68 cents now, I think, something like that.
God bless. All right. So to mail, two things. One, let's get the letter created for the property owners. Two, how do we get it into the hands, unless we hand deliver, we still need to print it on paper, hand deliver, so it's gonna be a cost
So you
of.
want to email?
Email is really impersonal.
Okay.
It's like,
Okay.
that's just, no.
Wouldn't that be presented?
You can, in addition to the hard copy.
I'm just trying to save the
email.
60 cents.
No, I understand that, but I think if you look at the bang for the buck, I know me personally, if I get something that's tangible, you can touch and feel
Oh,
it.
yeah.
It can't be
Like-
over 50.
Like
What?
I read the
over 50.
newspaper, it'd be like the
Want that?
old school
You
newspaper.
think so?
Oh, I'm pretty sure.
So we need to get a letter composed, we need to get it, we need to get paper to have it printed, we need,
Right.
obviously, and then we need to get it in the hands
Still
of
trying to
people.
figure out what would be the purpose
Yeah.
of doing this. If you have your land in chapter 61, you kind of know what
You
what
do.
you're doing in there. If
But I
you
think the
decide
I
you
think
get
it's-
rid of it,
It's us telling them, we appreciate what you're doing here.
Yeah.
And you could be selling that land and making a whopping carload of cash, okay? We appreciate what you're doing. We're aware that you're protecting this property.
yeah.
Is it someone like Rhino that owns the hospital now?
Yeah,
And I know that over at the golf course, they have architects coming in from Chicago. Are these people aware of this kind of a document and what it contains? Should we be
It's only aware
giving
whether it's
that-
chapter, there's only aware whether the property.
so that where, I think that, if I didn't
Golf course,
clearly
for sure.
articulate it earlier,
They know.
it's tied to the priority.
Yeah.
They may not know that this committee or you through the master plan has these priorities.
Right.
That their property may be on that list. They may or may not know that. So to dovetail this document into the
But not
notification,
all the chapter 61 lands are on
correct,
the
Now, we
list.
note that
so-
Rocky Woods is not a chapter 61
Yeah.
land.
yeah. Just a thought. You know, if not, then strike it. Strike everything. All right, that's gonna be the chair. Okay, so we're gonna move forward. Any additional comments or questions about the chapter 61 document? Okay.
No letter, right?
That was a good thought while it lasted,
Okay.
those last 20 minutes, but no. Okay. But this document is available,
Oh, yes, it's on the website.
it's on the website. Okay, great. Thank you so much. All right, then we have the copy of the master plan matrix.
I just wanted to make a comment. There were a couple of small changes at our last meeting. This is the final one. I didn't date it. Joe pointed that out. But this is the one that's on the website now.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I'm think you might know the answer to this. One of the things you put on here was the bowling alley site over there.
Yeah.
You see all the timber cutting that's been going on there?
Somebody said, is there cutting on
Truck was there
the
today.
pond, Assawamsett Pond?
They're all gone now.
All the
Is
trees.
the city of Taunton?
I know they were there yesterday or the day before when I drove by.
Where
They're gone now.
are they actually cutting? I mean, they're hauling out to the front of Dewey's Restaurant, but where are the trees? I mean, there's
I
a
read
bucket
on-
load of trees there.
I saw it on the internet, so it must be true. Scuttlebutt was, there were trees that were cut from the Route 79 project across from Star Drive-In. That was a rumor that went on the internet, that was where those trees came from.
It's not the Rock 79 project, it's not under construction yet.
No, I mean, there was, again, this is rumor that someone said, so your guess is as good as mine. Someone said it came from another location and they just temporarily put the trees there. I don't know.
I think something that I read was something about tree cutting at Assawamsett Dam, and if the trees at Dewey's belong to that. But wouldn't Concom have known
Beavers.
about it?
We have no
Beavers have been busy.
on that.
Doing well.
And there's brush cutting there, and the vast majority of it is in the Middleborough part of the dam, not the Lakeville part there. And I don't think, not to the volume that you have there.
Yeah.
And these are all giant mature trees.
Yeah.
And it doesn't make an awful lot of sense to load them on a truck, bring them all over there,
Yeah, and then load
stack
them
them all up, and then have to move them someplace else to a mill or whatever.
They weren't real big trees then.
There's some pretty
There
big
was
stuff
some
in
pretty
there.
decent
Isn't
size
there a
ones.
guy right a few houses down that cuts all that wood? Maybe he's
He's
just
over there
storing
doing
it there.
Yeah, to see all that wood that he does. That's unbelievable.
Oh, yeah, but he's the farmer. What he does, he buys dead pine trees because all he's selling is campfire firewood,
Is
you
that what it
know?
is?
Actually,
So-
people give it to them.
Give it to him.
Yeah.
They give it to him.
Give it
It's
to
my
him. Get rid of
nephew.
it. Get rid of
I
these
tried to
things.
give it to him, he's like, I'm good, thanks.
Have
Okay,
you seen the section from LeBaron Hills where they've leveled that whole section for the next,
Yeah.
for adjusted income housing?
yeah. So thank you for
So this-
getting this
the final
updated,
one.
and this is the final, it is on the website. There was somebody that I replied to on Lakeville, I think it was Lakeville Helping Lakeville or Lakeville, another Lakeville website, that they just moved to Lakeville. They had asked some questions and I referred them to this document on the website and just introduced myself and the chair. If you want to learn a little bit more about Lakeville, please, take a look at the master plan. And so, I know we spoke about it before, and I just reminded myself, remember the old days, the welcome wagon? Right, remember that?
They came to your house
Came to your house.
Yes, with a
Okay.
basket.
with the basket of stuff. yeah.
Exactly.
All these
Yeah.
coupons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do we have anything remotely close to that? So when
The
people
town
move to
clerk.
Lakeville, that
Yeah,
we
town
can,
Town clerk
Oh,
does.
yeah,
Yeah.
free meal.
is the master plan included in that?
No, we don't have, I think ours.
Not the actual physical one, but like to say, hey, we have a master plan, here's the hyperlink, and
No, I could check with her.
knowing that
Yeah, she
we,
could-
don't want to kill trees, because that's a lot of trees to make this,
No,
but,
I'll check with Lillian
yeah,
and
if
see
you
if she
could.
can put some kind of notice in there.
Yep.
Open space plan and master plan.
correct. Because when people ask, again, I just randomly talk to people, I know during the Christmas tree lighting at the Lions Club, I met a couple, that were brand new to Lakeville, and they were playing, their children were playing with my grandchildren, I just happened to, engage them in conversation, and they said they were brand new, and I introduced myself and spoke very, very briefly, about 10 seconds, to the master plan and just encouraged them to look at it. They thanked me, and then they were on their way, but, yeah, if we can catch people early and often and just reiterate it, and again, reinvigorate the committee, I think we're gonna be better positioned. Okay. Any other comments or observations about the matrix or anything else on there? All right. Agenda item 5, and the agenda is missing number 6. If we
Yes,
could
I
change number
noticed that.
7 to 6, unless it was in invisible ink.
Yeah, that was me playing around with, I added in the correspondence.
Oh, okay, thank you. So 6 is correct?
Yes,
Okay, thank you very much, I appreciate it. Okay, schedule next meeting. What are we looking at? So we know next month is, well, we're already 3 weeks in June.
well, the third week would be, July 18th, or if you
Do we
want.
want to get back to our original schedule? Or this is our original schedule, the
The third,
third Tuesday?
Yeah.
Okay. Third Tuesday is a negative for me for July.
how about the third Tuesday in August, August 15th?
I'll be off, but that's all right.
Anybody else not here? No, I mean, you guys don't feel compelled to not have a meeting because I'm not here.
What's the date?
So can someone else,
15th,
although we don't have a
did you say?
vice chair,
What did you say?
which we really should have a vice chair since Mr. Rogers has been gone, we really should consider a vice chair so that person can run this meeting in my absence.
August 15th?
Harry, you said you couldn't be here?
I won't be here now.
Do we want to put, on that agenda to vote on a vice chair and have them run the meeting? Ari?
On which one, the
Are
18th?
we-
On the 15th of August or the 18th of July?
The 18th of July.
Are we seriously gonna have enough to?
Talk about.
Have me talk about
Yeah.
for a meeting in July?
Probably
In
not.
July, I mean, I don't know, it's up to you as a committee. I don't know what the imperative would be for a monthly meeting at this point.
Because really all we're working on is the new charge
Right.
and
We struggle to make it an hour.
I'm kind of looking at September really, 19th right now.
I mean, I would
Truth be told, September 19th.
No, lie to me, please.
move it up to September, I think it's more.
Fine.
September 19th?
When is the town meeting?
It'll be in November.
Okay, so that would give us some time
We'll probably be able to do some more discussion at that meeting too. Just September 19th.
for the September.
Yeah.
Okay.
The 19th?
Of September? Okay, all in favor? Aye?
Aye.
All opposed? All right. 19th of September. That sounds good to me.
Make sure we can get a place to meet, right?
Yes, I do that right away.
Right away.
Thank you. And that's gonna be we still okay with 6:30 or do we wanna?
6:30 is fine.
6:30 is fine.
Okay.
Says the meeting was late.
All right. So is there any other business that may properly come before this meeting? Hearing none.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, meeting adjourned. Thank you so much.